Good morning. Welcome to breakfast this Saturday morning with Naga Munchetti and John Kay.
Our headlines. Chaos and panic in Kabul as thousands crowd the airport, desperate to leave Afghanistan.
Facing a firestorm of criticism, President Biden says it's one of the largest, most difficult airlifts in history. And he makes this pledge to US citizens.
But let me be clear. Any American who wants to come home, we will get you home.
Welfare rules for the dogs imported to the UK are to be tightened amid a rise in puppy smuggling.
Good morning. Coming up in sport, Georgia Hall leads the Women's Open. The 2018 champion has victory on her mind going into round 3 at Carnoustie.
And we get a bit of everything thrown at us this weekend with some pretty unsettled weather to come for some of us today, but something brighter on offer tomorrow. I'll be back with all the details.
Good morning. Saturday, the 21st of August, and our top story this morning is there have been yet more scenes of chaos at Kabul airport as crowds gather in the hope of fleeing Taliban-controlled Afghanistan.
At least 2,400 people have been flown back to the UK so far, most of them UK nationals or those who had assisted British efforts in Afghanistan. The government says it's working through the logistics of getting more people to the airport. Our Afghanistan correspondent, Secunda Kamani, has this report from the ground.
Panic and chaos close to Kabul airport. British soldiers guarding a secure compound for those being evacuated. British passport holders in the crowd desperately trying to get through. Like this Uber driver from West London.
This is the kids. We are waiting.
How long have you been here waiting?
I came morning, 5 o'clock. So still I'm waiting here. In the last 3 days, I'm trying to go inside.
And they won't let you into the hotel?
Yeah.
Even though the embassy has told you to come here?
Yeah, he said
Even more distressing scenes at the main entrance to the compound. British soldiers trying to keep the crowd back. This is a scene of total and utter chaos. Many of the people here don't have any permission to board an evacuation flight, but they're so desperate that they've just turned up here anyway. That's making it extremely difficult for those who have been told to come here by the British Embassy to get through.
My family, my newborn baby.
Amongst those trapped by the crowd, this former British Army interpreter. His wife gave birth just 2 weeks ago, and he's deeply worried about the baby.
Maybe I lose my kid, and maybe she is not good. She's not good, my wife.
You can't stay here.
I can't stay here. Look at the situation. Look at the dirt all over here. And nobody, until now, I'm here since the morning. I came here, Taliban lashed me on back.
Most of the people here are in a state of total confusion. They don't know how they can, but just want to leave the country before the evacuation flights end. What makes you think you'll be able to travel? This woman says she was a player on the national basketball team.
I'm so skilled because I'm girl.
As the day goes on, some of those who are meant to be here eventually get through, including the family with a young baby. Many others are still struggling, though. Even more who want to leave but can't will be left behind. Secunda Kamani, BBC News, Kabul.
In the United States, President Biden has admitted that the evacuation of Americans from Afghanistan isn't without risk of loss.
Yeah, he was speaking at the White House last night, and Mr. Biden said the military had evacuated 13,000 people so far and hoped to get everyone home.
Any American who wants to come home, we will get you home. But make no mistake, this evacuation mission is dangerous. It involves risks to our armed forces, and it's being conducted under difficult circumstances. I cannot promise what the final outcome will be, or what it will be, that it will be without risk of loss. But as Commander-in-Chief, I can assure you that I will mobilize every resource necessary. The past week has been heartbreaking. We've seen gut-wrenching images of panicked people acting out of sheer desperation. You know, it's completely understandable. They're frightened, they're sad, uncertain what happens next. I don't think any one of us can see these pictures and not feel that pain on a human level. Now we have a mission to complete in Afghanistan.
Well, President Biden was adamant that his country's credibility had not been damaged by the events of the last week.
He's been facing criticism for misjudging the situation in Afghanistan and failing to anticipate the speed of the Taliban's takeover. Here's more from our US correspondent, David Willis.
President Biden called this one of the largest and most difficult airlifts in history, but he's vowed to bring not only Americans home, but also the Afghans who worked with them. President Biden said significant progress had been made as far as the evacuation effort was concerned, but he conceded there had been a pause during the day yesterday, and it turns out that pause lasted around 7 hours and was caused by a receiving base in Qatar being too full to take in any more evacuees. Meanwhile, the crush at Kabul airport continues, and the US today flew 3 Chinook helicopters into a hotel on the outskirts of the airport to bring in 167 American citizens who basically couldn't get in because it was so congested at the entrance to Kabul airport. The Taliban, the president insists, is continuing to provide safe passage for Americans through to the airport, but today the US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin confirmed that there were reports that Americans had been beaten in some cases by the Taliban. Whether the president's latest remarks will assuage his critics remains to be seen. His approval rating is currently at its lowest since he took office.
David Willis there. Well, meanwhile, here in the UK, the Prime Minister says he absolutely has confidence in the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab. He's come under fire for his handling of the crisis in Afghanistan.
Yeah, let's have a look at how events have unfolded. So, on Friday last week, Mr. Raab was advised to call the Afghan Foreign Minister. This was just before the government in Afghanistan fell. Now, at the time, Mr. Raab was on holiday in Crete, and he says that call was delegated to a junior minister. But because he says he was prioritising security and capacity at the airport on the direct advice of the Director and Director General that's in the civil service in the UK, overseeing the crisis response.
Now, on Saturday, the Taliban reached the outskirts of Kabul. The Foreign Secretary was still on holiday. By now, no call had been made. The government says that was down to the rapidly deteriorating situation. Then on Sunday, the Taliban took Kabul. The Prime Minister chaired a Cobra meeting and the Foreign Secretary flew back from his holiday.
Let's speak to our political correspondent, Ione Wells, now, who joins us now from our London newsroom. Ione, Dominic Raab says he's not quitting. The Prime Minister says he has full confidence in his Foreign Secretary. So do you think Dominic Raab is now safe?
Well, John, as you say, I mean, the Prime Minister's come out and said he absolutely has confidence in the Foreign Secretary. So it does appear to an extent that he's safe for now. Obviously, he's defended his decision to delegate that key phone call to the Afghan Foreign Minister, saying he was prioritising safety and security and capacity at the airport. But I think there's still lots of big questions for the government and Dominic Raab that will certainly not go away anytime soon. Firstly, if, as the Prime Minister suggested, the UK government was doing everything it could, was it the case? Why was that the case when Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab was still on holiday on Sunday, spotted, as reported by various newspapers, on a beach on the day that Kabul collapsed to the Taliban? Secondly, I think this whole event kind of raises questions about the government's wider preparedness for this crisis. When we knew months ago that troops would be withdrawing, UK citizens had been advised early in the summer to start leaving Afghanistan. And I think linked to that point as well, even if that one phone call may have not changed the trajectory of how the crisis unfolded, as was suggested by the Armed Forces Minister James Heappey yesterday, should he have really been on the phone to people like his Afghan counterpart sooner than Friday anyway, given what we knew about how this crisis might unfold? So I think there's lots of questions building for the Foreign Secretary, and not least as well this issue of how and who was briefing against him from within his own department, suggesting that there was some discontent about his handling of the crisis from those very much working closely with him.
OK, Ione, for now, thanks very much indeed.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.